Eyewitness News this morning starts right now with breaking news.
A frightening scene overnight in eastern Kanawha County. You were seeing the moment a chemical plant explosion rocked the area, caught on a home security system. A shelter-in-place order was lifted around 2:30 this morning after that massive explosion at the chemical plant in Bell. 4 people hurt at the Optima site at the Chemours plant.
That's right, Dave. And here's a different look for you that we have this morning. This is an aerial view of that explosion that happened around 10:30 last night. You can see right in the center of your screen there, the red and orange hot flames shooting up from that factory there where that happened. Again, this is some viewer video right here from their drone. A very large fire burning, causing all of that disruption overnight. And this is where we are left this morning with your team coverage. Covering this for you right now, we have Ava Rash live in Marmet with us. But first, let's get straight to Lauren Talata this morning, live in Bell with the very latest on what happened. Lauren?
Yeah, Jennifer, that explosion rocking the Bell community and beyond. And officials believe that a chlorinated dry bleach and methanol are the chemicals involved that caused that explosion. That's according to Kanawha County Commission President Kent Carper, who said as of 1:30 this morning, 2 additional people went to the hospital for their injuries from the explosion. Now, at last check, that brings the total number of people injured to 4. This all happened in the Optima chemical operations area of the plant. Now, we don't have a lot of information about all of those injuries. We do know that 1 person was taken to the hospital by ambulance. A second person hit by debris and drove themselves. Now, Carper says county officials are working with leaders at the plant to make sure that a second incident doesn't occur.
We are very much concerned because this is something that happens not if, but when it relates to these chemical facilities. So we are constantly trying to keep an eye on these plants to make sure, that things like this don't happen. And if they do happen, that we can at least get the information out to the public.
Now, late last night, Kanawha Boulevard, Dupont Avenue, and Wichita Creek Road were all shut down but have since reopened. White says the investigation will continue over the course of the next few days. Now, I did speak with Metro 911 officials here in the last hour. They told us that the Bell Volunteer Fire Department and Kanawha County Ambulance Authority are still on scene. We haven't seen them quite yet, but we are going to keep looking. And as I mentioned earlier, debris was another issue that a lot of people encountered. We are going to have more on that coming up later in the hour. For now, reporting live in Bell, Lauren Talata, Eyewitness News.
Lauren, thank you. And this morning, people are reacting to the explosion all around the Kanawha Valley.
That's right. Eyewitness News reporter Ava Rash is live across the river in Marmet. Ava, what have you been hearing?
Good morning, Dave. I am here across the river. Like you said, the plant is actually right behind us, if you can see that. And people are slowly starting to get up and move around since that shelter in place has been lifted. Now, this was quite a large explosion and it sent debris onto roads. And right whenever that happened, a shelter in place order immediately came out, and that really affected residents. Just to compare, it felt like a small earthquake, and they explained that that was really quite a scary situation for them. Michael Yates, he lives in Bell. He felt that explosion, but never thought that it was from the plant.
Now the explosion itself, when it if you can imagine, you've seen a nuclear bomb go off. You feel that wave pressure, and that's what it seemed like. You could hear it coming, and then it just really. I mean, in my house. It's never shook like that. And, of course, I heard stuff hitting the roof. I mean, and they have found debris over in Chesapeake and up on the highway there and every place.
And again, a great description of what it felt like to be in this area last night. Again, a very scary situation until that shelter in place was lifted around 2:30. We will keep you updated all morning long with the latest. In Marmet, Ava Rash, Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you, Ava. Well, Kanawha County Schools announced that due to the shelter in place overnight, All Riverside area schools will be closed today. They are listed right here on your screen. No staff should report. Students should log into Schoolology for e-learning.
And you can continue to follow updates at WCHSTV.com and on our social media pages. We'll keep you updated there on any breaking developments right here on Eyewitness News on air and online.
Right now at 5, we are continuing to follow that developing story out of eastern Kanawha County. An explosion at a chemical plant leading to a shelter in place. And we now know one person was killed. A look at the damage and reaction.
Shook the windows to the house. We didn't know what was going on.
Plus, we take a closer look at what was involved in that explosion as we uncover new information about the chemicals stored at that plant and what the company failed to reveal about what they were doing.
Eyewitness News at 5 starts right now.
A chemical explosion at Optima Chemical at the Chemours plant in Bell killed one man and injured 3 other people. Officials tell us that a chlorinated dry bleach and methanol were the chemicals involved in that explosion. Last night, some alarms failed to go off and warn residents in affected areas. We investigate the safety protocols that failed to alert you, and the U.S. Chemical Safety Board tells us that an independent federal agency will probe the cause of this explosion.
And we do now know the name of the man who was killed in that explosion, John Gillenwater, who was a worker at the plant and from Hurricane was killed. His family did issue a statement today saying they're obviously devastated over the loss of their husband, father, and friend, saying he was beloved by many in his community and very active in his church. Going on to say his wife Tina and her children are surrounded by family and friends in this great time of need, calling what happened a tragedy. They went on to say that Gillenwater was the sole breadwinner for his family, and they're asking for prayers. A fund has also been set up at for the family at City National Bank.
We have team coverage of all of those angles tonight. Kenny Bass starts things off at our live news desk with an exclusive Eyewitness News investigation into this explosion. Kenny?
In the immediate aftermath of the explosion, our investigative team thought it would be a good idea to let you know each company working on the former DuPont site and the chemicals which they are processing. In the midst of our search, we found a surprising development tied directly to Optima Chemical and the fatal blast. In response to our questions about the chemicals on that site, Kanawha County emergency officials say Optima did not disclose it was working with chlorinated dry bleach as it is required to by law. In a phone call with Kanawha County Commission President Kent Carper, an Optima spokesperson said it was the first time the company was processing chlorinated dry bleach at the Bell site, and that something went wrong during the startup phase. Emergency first responders say it's critically important to know what they're dealing with anytime there's a chemical plant emergency. And how big of a responsibility is it for the company to provide that before they start doing processes?
And we would like to have that information in advance. Lucky thing for us last night was that the Chemours Fire Brigade knew what the product was. I guess they found out when they got there. I'm not sure how they knew, but they were able to tell us what that product was. There was a little confusion what was actually on fire. Was it methanol? Was it the chlorinated dry bleach? But they were eventually able to get us a data sheet where we could send to the Emergency Operations Center.
Sigmund says although the Chemours fire team told first responders they were dealing with chlorinated dry bleach, that's not the way the system is supposed to work. There are scenarios where firefighters don't immediately know which chemicals are causing an emergency. The company, again, is legally responsible to file information on what it's processing so firefighters can know in advance what they're facing. I'll have more on this developing investigative story tonight at 6 o'clock. For now, reporting live from the newsroom, Kenny Bass, Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you, Kenny. And tonight, a variety of state and federal agencies have launched an investigation into the cause of last night's deadly chemical plant fire and explosion. Eyewitness News reporter Bob Aaron continuing our team coverage now, saying these investigations are often lengthy and complex.
Emergency officials have a good idea what happened when an explosion at a chemical plant in Bell rocked eastern Kanawha County Tuesday night, killed chemical worker John Gillenwater, and shot debris across US 60 and the Kanawha River. The why will take longer with inquiries by the DEP, EPA, and the Chemical Safety Board getting underway. Bell firefighters ordered everyone within 2 miles to shelter in place.
Sounded like a bomb had exploded right in our driveway. The house shook and the windows were shaking.
The blast dropped a 10-foot chunk of metal on nearby US 60, damaging cars.
There's just debris literally everywhere, and while I'm driving, it comes out of nowhere.
The explosion took place on part of the sprawling Bell plant operated by Optima. That explosion, in turn, damaged a pipeline in a pipe rack that carried methanol.
But I can tell you that something went wrong inside of that process and created the explosion, which the secondary piece of that was the pieces from the explosion severed a piece of the pipe rack, which was carrying a pipe filled with methanol.
A huge fire followed, but never involved chemical barges tied up nearby.
The issue occurred in a process on the east end of the plant. There was some type of reactor that had a fault in it and created the explosion.
Chemical startups are often a danger point in working with chemicals like chlorinated dry bleach. In Bell, Bob Aaron, Eyewitness News.
And thank you, Bob. Repeated efforts to get information or any comment from Optima have so far gone unanswered.
There are many ways to alert people of a shelter-in-place emergency, but we have now learned last night some of those alerts failed. Eyewitness News reporter Rachel Urbanski is live tonight in Bell with more on what went wrong. Rachel?
That's right. We're only about a half mile to a mile away from the chemical plant, and people in this neighborhood being that close really rely on devices like that, a siren, to alert them when something dangerous is happening, like a chemical explosion at a plant less than 2 miles away. Now, people in this area that we talked to, and we talked to a lot of them, they gave us mixed reactions. Some say they heard the sirens, others say they didn't hear them at all, and another group said they heard the sirens go off, but 45 minutes after the explosions. We talked to Kanawha County Commissioner Kent Carper today. He tells us they are very much well aware of the problem and are trying to fix it.
We've got all types of ways of warning people now. We need to ramp up on some other things. Another system, which is a federal government system called WIA, it didn't activate at all. I think it should have. We're also looking into that.
Now, I'm told the sirens are tested once a month, and the last time they were looked at was the end of November, where everything checked out. Now, there were some sirens, we're told, that did not go off. However, they are checking the batteries, they're looking into the devices, and checking the daily reports that are done to see what went wrong and how they can fix the problem. Live in Bell, Rachel Urbanski, Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you, Rachel. That blast could be felt for miles around. Eyewitness News reporter Anthony Kahn spoke with residents today. He's live now with their reaction. Anthony?
A neighbor here told me he hit the floor last night when he heard the explosion. It was that jarring. And while it is quiet here tonight, it's sure to be the talk of the town for many days to come.
A bang heard around Kanawha County and beyond.
Biggest boom I've ever heard in my life.
Shaking homes and the people inside.
Shook the windows to the house. We didn't know what was going on.
And outside,
a huge fire. Yeah. It was huge.
Residents within a 2-mile radius ordered to shelter in place.
We just hunkered down and waited it out, turned off the heat and got a blanket.
Remnants of the Chemours plant explosion left behind the next morning. Debris outside of the plant.
Well, it's glass knocked all the way in there.
Yeah, it's all the way in there. Hell no.
And damage to homes like a broken window on Reynolds Avenue. The explosion shocking residents, but not surprising them.
Yeah, I've always been leery of the plant, and this does not help it.
I used to think I'd never live here in Bell because of that plant when I was growing up. But no, since I've lived here, I'm not really worried too much.
And a common theme we're hearing around here, like Rachel just said, is residents told me they wish they were alerted sooner. Many of them got their news from Facebook or from watching our news last night. So we'll see what happens and what public officials have to say about the response time for this incident. For now, live in Bell, Kanawha County, Anthony Kahn, Eyewitness News.